Captain Rhea Valens stood motionless on the bridge of the cynosure, staring at the holographic display that floated in front of her. The swirling mass of stars and celestial bodies had been her battlefield for years, but today it felt different. The tension was palpable in the air. The Empire's fleet was on its way, and there was no turning back now. Her fingers danced across the console, adjusting parameters, making sure every system was online, every crew member in place. The cynosure wasn't the biggest ship nor the most advanced, but it was fast, flexible, and, if she was being honest, it was about to become humanity's best shot at surviving what was coming. "Status report," Rhea called, her voice steady, betraying none of the nervousness that gnawed at her gut. The cynosure wasn't just a ship. It was humanity's defiance, a statement that they would not go quietly into the galaxy's underbrush. First Officer Marcus Juno's voice broke through the tension. "All systems are green, Captain. Crew is ready. We're as prepared as we're ever going to be." His words hung in the air for a moment, and Rhea glanced at him. Marcus was an old friend, and his unflappable demeanor usually brought some comfort. But today there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes that he didn't bother to hide. "The Empire's fleet is inbound," Marcus continued, tapping a display. "We'll have visual contact within the hour." Rhea nodded, her gaze fixed on the projected map of their star system. The Empire's ships would be like a wall, unyielding and relentless, but humanity had something they didn't, an instinct for survival, for improvisation, and, she hoped, enough luck to make a difference. "Captain," a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Admiral Draken's fleet is sending a communication," said Lieutenant Zira, the communications officer. "It's coded, but it's not encrypted." Rhea raised an eyebrow. "So they want us to hear their ultimatum?" she mused. "Patch it through." The hologram flickered, and the cold, haughty face of Grand Admiral Kale Draken appeared in the center of the room. He was seated in a dark, imposing chair, his hands folded in front of him. The man had the aura of someone who had never been told no in his life. "This is your final warning, human scum," Draken's voice echoed through the speakers. "Surrender now and your colonies will be spared. Resist, and you will be wiped from existence." Rhea stood tall, refusing to show even a flicker of fear. "Is that the best you've got, Draken?" Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're too scared to do anything but send ultimatums. No, we won't surrender. Not today. Not ever." Draken's lip curled slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Then you will die. Your race will be crushed beneath the might of the Empire." His image flickered, then vanished, the communication severed. Rhea exhaled slowly, taking in the weight of his words. But she didn't flinch. Humanity had faced worse. They had fought and won, against all odds, time and time again. "Captain," Marcus spoke again, his voice quieter now, almost hesitant. "This is it. There's no going back after this. We're outgunned, outnumbered. They won't hesitate to wipe us out." Rhea turned to face him, her expression unwavering. "Marcus, you've been with me through every hard call, through every battle. You know what we've got in our corner. We may not have their firepower, but we've got our minds, our adaptability." She leaned closer. "And we've got each other. Don't forget that." He didn't respond immediately, but he nodded slowly. "Yeah. We've got that, at least." Rhea gave him a wry smile. "We've got more than that. We've got a hell of a fight ahead, but we won't go down easy. Not now. Not ever." The bridge fell silent, the only sound the soft hum of the ship's engines and the faint static of the communication systems. The crew could feel it, the weight of what was coming. Each person knew their part, their role in what might be the last stand of the human race. Zira's voice cut through the quiet. "Captain, the Empire's ships have dropped out of hyperspace. They're here." Rhea stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond. The massive silhouettes of the Empire's fleet loomed in the distance, dark and imposing, blocking out the stars behind them. The Dominator, the flagship, was the largest of them all, dwarfing the human ships like a shadow over a candle. "All right, people," Rhea said, her voice firm and calm. "We're about to face the Empire. We may be small, but we're fast. We've trained for this. Keep your heads clear. Trust your instincts. And above all, don't underestimate them, but don't overestimate them either." Her crew nodded, preparing for the coming battle. The ship was ready. The crew was ready. All they needed now was the right moment to strike. Marcus came up beside her, checking his own station. "We've got the asteroid field in the next sector. If we can pull them in close enough—" "We will," Rhea interrupted him, her tone leaving no room for doubt. "We'll use everything we've got. They're not expecting us to fight dirty. Let's make sure they remember the name Cynosure." A low rumble echoed through the ship's systems as the first blast of Empire fire struck nearby, a reminder that the storm was here. Rhea's hand hovered over the command console, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then she slammed her fist down. "Move out," she barked. "Launch all fighters. Initiate evasive maneuvers. Let's make them regret ever underestimating humanity." The ship jolted as it moved into position. Every crew member moved with purpose, no hesitation. Rhea took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She'd led them this far. Now, it was time to see if they could survive what was to come. As the Cynosure leapt into action, weaving between the asteroids, Rhea couldn't help but smile. The Empire was big. The Empire was powerful. But humanity had never been about size or power. Humanity was about heart. And as long as they had that, they would never be defeated. The battle had begun. Rhea Valens gripped the helm of the Cynosure, her eyes focused on the tactical display, watching as the Empire's fleet moved into position. The massive ships loomed on the holomap, the weight of their firepower almost tangible. But Rhea wasn't thinking about how outclassed they were. She was thinking about how to turn that disparity into an advantage. "Captain," Marcus Juno called from the communications panel. "The Empire's locking onto us. They've already deployed fighter wings. We've got incoming." The ship vibrated as a pulse of energy shot past them, narrowly missing the port side. The Empire's advanced weapons systems were formidable, but Rhea had known this would be the case. They had only one advantage: the element of surprise, and they'd better use it before the Empire figured out their game. "Deploy all drone mines," Rhea commanded, her voice steady. "Use the asteroid field to mask them. Let's make them think we're just another scrap of debris." "Deploying now, Captain," said Lieutenant Zira, her voice tight but resolute. "Drone mines ready to launch." The drones, small and inconspicuous, shot into the vastness of space, their camouflage sensors activated. To the Empire, they would look like the random space debris drifting in the void. It was a risk. If the drones didn't work, they'd lose their best chance of confusing the enemy. But Rhea wasn't one for second-guessing. "Stay on evasive course," she ordered, eyeing the Empire's ships as they began to respond, shifting formation. The Empire's fleet was a well-oiled machine, too predictable. Rhea had been watching them long enough to understand their rhythm. Another round of blaster fire rang out, this time grazing the Cynosure's starboard hull. The ship shook violently, but it held together. Rhea didn't flinch. "All hands, brace for impact," she shouted, her voice carrying through the ship's intercom. The crew moved with practiced precision. Damage reports flashed across her console, but none were critical. The Cynosure was tough, and its crew even tougher. "We've got a hole in the aft, Captain," Marcus reported, his fingers flying over his console. "Not bad, but we'll need to reroute power." "Do it," Rhea replied, her eyes darting between the visual feed and the tactical map. They had to keep moving, keep unpredictable. They couldn't afford to stay still. The Empire would swarm if they gave them the opportunity. At that moment, Zira's voice crackled over the comm. "The drones are active. Empire fighters have locked onto them. They're taking the bait." Rhea felt a surge of relief, but immediately reined it in. This was only the first move. The Empire's fighters moved into the asteroid field, chasing after the disguised drones. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to walk into a trap. Now, Rhea muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Launch the decoy interceptors. Give them a taste of their own medicine. From the depths of the Cynosure's hold, a small squadron of decoy interceptors burst forth, appearing to engage the Empire's main fleet. The interceptors were nothing more than fast, lightly armored ships with enough maneuverability to draw fire and distract the Empire's forces. To the Empire's eyes, it was a full-fledged counterattack. "Ready the mining drones for detonation," Rhea said, her voice low. "I want to make sure they don't know what hit them." The Cynosure danced around the Empire's fighters, darting between asteroids and debris. The enemy ships, focused on the decoy interceptors, didn't notice the real threat until it was too late. "Detonate drones," Rhea commanded. The air in the bridge seemed to thicken with the anticipation. A split second later, explosions lit up the dark void. EMP pulses erupted across the battlefield, briefly disabling several of the Empire's fighters and leaving them helpless as their systems rebooted. It was a perfect execution, one that Rhea could feel in her bones. "Direct hit, Captain," Marcus said with a grim smile. "They're scrambling to regain control." "Keep them on the ropes," Rhea replied. "Don't let up." The Cynosure surged forward, weaving through the chaos. Every inch of space felt like a calculated risk, every move deliberate. The crew had trained for moments like this, but that didn't make it any easier. The pressure was suffocating. Every command Rhea gave could mean the difference between life and death. A loud screech echoed across the bridge as another Empire fighter ship narrowly avoided a direct hit. The enemy's gunners were quick, relentless, but Rhea knew how to stay unpredictable. She ordered a sudden shift in course, sending the Cynosure spinning out of the line of fire. "Shields are holding, but barely," Zira reported, her eyes locked on the energy readings. "They're learning, Captain. They're starting to adjust." Rhea's lips pressed into a thin line. The Empire was adaptable too, something she hadn't expected to see so soon. "We'll have to keep them guessing. Marcus, any new intel from their fleet?" He scanned the screens quickly. "They're reconfiguring into battle group. Looks like they're preparing a coordinated strike." "Good," Rhea said with a smirk. "That'll give us an opening. Get ready for Phase 2. As she spoke, an explosion rocked the hull of the ship again. This time, the impact came from above. "Captain, we've lost aft stabilizers," Marcus said through clenched teeth. "We're drifting slightly." "Get it back online now," Rhea ordered. Her pulse quickened, but her voice remained firm. The ship's constant damage was mounting, and the longer they stayed in the fight, the more it could cripple them. Without missing a beat, Marcus worked his station, tapping into the ship's auxiliary systems. "Done. Aft stabilizers are back online. We can maintain course." "Good. Now, full speed ahead," Rhea said. "Prepare to draw them in." The Cynosure accelerated toward the Empire's nearest battle group, the ship's engines roaring to life. They were taking a gamble. The Empire's ships were far more powerful, but the humans had one thing they didn't: the ability to think on the fly. As the Cynosure neared, the Empire's ships began to open fire, but it was just what Rhea wanted. She had already ordered the Cynosure to set course directly through the asteroid field. Risky, but it would force the Empire's fleet to follow her into a trap. "This is it," Rhea murmured, her fingers tapping the edge of her console. The moment she'd been waiting for. The Empire had underestimated humanity. But if they followed her into the asteroid field, they'd soon learn their mistake. "Brace for impact," she said. Another volley of blaster fire tore through the void, impacting near the Cynosure. Rhea felt the ship shudder violently as it veered to the left, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. She didn't flinch. Not now. The battle was only beginning, but already, she could see the cracks forming in the Empire's confidence. "Keep pushing them," Rhea ordered. "We're not giving them a second to breathe. Move fast." The cynosure carved its path through the space debris, dancing with precision between rocks and derelict ship. The Empire was struggling to adjust, their formations growing less coordinated, their movements more rigid. Rhea smiled grimly. The Empire had made their first mistake. And in war, that was all it took. The battlefield was a swirling mass of chaos. The cynosure darted through the asteroid field, a flickering shadow weaving between jagged rocks and debris. Empire ships, massive and terrifying, were now scrambling, their previously flawless coordination slipping into disarray. Rhea Valens leaned forward in her seat, her eyes sharp as she watched the tactical map unfold before her. "Captain," Marcus Juno's voice came through with urgency, "they're starting to regroup. Their fighters are pulling back into formation. They're trying to counteract our movement patterns." Rhea didn't flinch. "Good," she muttered. "Let them think they've got control. We've still got a few tricks left." On the screens, the Empire's ships were slowly adjusting, repositioning themselves for a counteroffensive. They hadn't fully adapted to humanity's unpredictable tactics yet, but it wouldn't be long. Rhea knew the Empire would soon figure out that their tactics weren't just lucky. This was how humanity fought. "All systems report green," Zira said, her fingers flying over her console. "But we're starting to lose auxiliary power to the shields. We need to make a move soon." Rhea nodded. "Set a course directly into their main battle group. Full speed ahead." The crew responded without hesitation, each member trusting Rhea's judgment. They were outgunned, outnumbered, but they had their resolve. They had their ingenuity. That was enough for now. The cynosure broke away from the asteroid field, weaving between the hulking masses of the Empire's ships. Just as planned, the Empire's fleet followed in pursuit, unable to let the humans slip away. But Rhea had no intention of running. Not anymore. She glanced at her second-in-command. "Marcus, ready the secondary EMP devices. We'll need them to disable their targeting systems. Get them off our backs." Marcus gave a curt nod, his focus never wavering. "Aye, Captain. Devices ready to launch on your command." The cynosure rocketed forward, drawing fire as it cut across the void. Explosions erupted all around them, but the ship danced between the debris, taking advantage of every opening. Then, as if on cue, Rhea slammed her fist onto the console. "Now," she barked. The secondary EMP devices shot from their launch bays. There were only a few, but that was all they needed. The pulse hit the closest Empire ships, scrambling their targeting systems and momentarily blinding them to the cynosure's position. It was a short-lived advantage, but it was enough. "Direct hit," Zira called out. "They've lost targeting. We've got a clean shot." Rhea's hands flew over the controls. "Hit them with everything we've got. Take out their flanking ships first." The cynosure's cannons roared to life, sending a barrage of fire into the closest Empire vessels. Explosions rocked the battlefield as enemy ships were knocked off course. For a brief moment, it seemed like the humans might actually stand a chance. But as expected, the Empire wasn't done yet. "Captain, we're being flanked," Marcus warned. "They're shifting reinforcements into position. They've caught onto our pattern." Rhea gritted her teeth. The Empire's response was swift, but predictable. They were methodical, well-coordinated, and as ruthless as ever. They couldn't afford to let the humans escape their grasp. "Not today," Rhea muttered under her breath. "Set a hard port. Push into their formation. I want to break their lines." With her order, the cynosure veered sharply, cutting across the Empire's path. The maneuver threw their enemies off balance for just a moment, just long enough for Rhea to make her move. "Now," she shouted again, "fire at will." The cynosure unleashed a final barrage, a deadly sweep of firepower that carved into the Empire's formation. For a moment, it looked like the Empire might collapse, at least momentarily. The flagship Dominator took heavy damage to its shields, forcing Kale Draken's fleet to retreat slightly. "Captain, their flagship's shields are weakening," Marcus said, his voice tense with excitement. If we can just push a little harder. Before he could finish, the ship rocked violently. Another direct hit to the cynosure, and this time it was serious. The lights flickered, alarms screamed, and a jagged crack appeared along the starboard hull. "We've lost structural integrity on Deck 3. Zira yelled, her face pale. "It's spreading." Ria's face tightened, but there was no time for panic. The crew needed her calmness now more than ever. "Status on power systems?" she asked, her voice unwavering. "Power's at 42% and dropping fast," Marcus responded. "We're not going to last much longer at this rate." Ria's mind raced. The battle had reached its critical point. She had pushed the cynosure to the edge, but now, with the ship's hull breaching and power reserves running low, they were on borrowed time. Still, she wasn't about to surrender. "Lock on to the Dominator's command deck," she ordered, eyes narrowing. "One more shot. It's all or nothing." Marcus hesitated for a moment, looking at her with a mixture of respect and concern. "Captain, you're suggesting we charge their flagship? If we don't, they'll finish us off and move on to the rest of the fleet," Ria said, her voice firm. "We're going to hit them so hard they'll never recover. Now do it." Marcus didn't argue. He set the course. "Steady as she goes," Ria muttered, gripping the armrests of her chair. "Everyone, prepare for impact." The cynosure lurched forward, heading straight for the Dominator. Every moment felt like it was in slow motion, the inevitable collision building with each passing second. The crew was ready, bracing themselves for the most dangerous part of the plan. "Firing," Marcus said, his voice tinged with urgency. The cannons fired once more, and this time, it was a concentrated strike aimed directly at the heart of the Dominator. The shot cut through the void, a beam of energy that collided with the enemy flagship's command tower. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Dominator's shields flickered and collapsed under the strain of the attack. The blast tore through the command center, and the ship began to break apart. The cynosure was now dangerously close, too close to escape without risking total destruction. The crew felt the heat of the blast through the hull, a gut-wrenching reminder that they had crossed a line from which there was no turning back. "Captain, the Dominator is going critical," Zira shouted. "We need to move now." But Ria's eyes never left the visual display. She watched as the Empire flagship shuddered, its engines sputtering in their final moments. There was no more time for subtlety, no more time for strategy. This was their moment. "Set course to retreat," Ria commanded, her voice firm. "Get us out of here." With a violent jolt, the cynosure veered away from the dying Dominator, pushing forward with what little power remained. The Empire's forces, disoriented and stunned by the loss of their flagship, began to retreat, their cohesion falling apart. The humans had done the impossible. "We did it," Marcus said, a quiet disbelief in his voice. Ria allowed herself a brief exhale, a flicker of relief in her chest. "Not yet," she said, her tone still resolute. "This is only the beginning. But it's a damn good start." As the cynosure sped away from the wreckage of the Dominator, Ria knew that the message had been sent. The Empire wasn't invincible. And humanity, for the first time in centuries, had proven it.